Good morning. I have a little recipe that I would like to share with you. And I know some of you are going to think I'm Susie Homemaker, but I promise that I'm not. But there's a few little recipes that I really love, and I want to share those with you. And if you hear that popping sound, that's some butter I have melting over here on the stove. I have found a recipe for granola, which you can make it so many different ways and add a lot of different things to it, whatever suits your taste. But I have kind of minimized this recipe to just suit my taste. Well, I've told you before, I don't taste or smell since I've had COVID about a year ago, but maybe I should say it's very filling. But whenever I could taste, this was so good, and it's easy, so I want to share it with you. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, now if you have kids or a family that eats cereal, this may not last very long, but no one in my family, my husband nor my daughter, likes cereal, so I'm the only one that eats it. And right now I'm out, and I thought, well, I'll just make some, and it's really good, really filling. I'm going to use 1 cup of old-fashioned oats. I hardly ever use minute oats, except maybe if I'm making what we used to call oatmeal squares. And if you don't have that recipe, I have a lady I used to work with that has a delicious recipe, and I might share that with you sometime, which it uses the minute oats. But this is a cup of just regular old-fashioned oats. And then I'm going to write the recipe down below in the description for you. It calls for 1/4 cup of coconut, but I love coconut, so I'm just going to get me a little handful. And this is that baker's coconut, and it just stays so fresh and moist. And here it is. It's the sweetened baker's. And to store it, I keep a clip on it because you sure don't want any air to get to it. And then I put it in this little plastic bag and just store it in the cabinet. Now, it calls for nuts, so you could use a variety of nuts, but I buy these from the homemakers in our county. They sell these like around Christmas time, and I usually buy a couple of bags and just stick them in the freezer. So these are cold because they've been in the freezer. I'm going to open that bag up just a little more. And this calls for 1/2 cup of pecans, but I'm just going to get me a little handful, throw them in there. And I'm going to just take me a fork and mix these up. It also calls for 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Well, I'll just put a little dab in there, which will be just fine. I'm going to just stir that up. It's just oats, pecans, coconut, and a little brown sugar. Now you can put some salt in there. Now it does call for cinnamon, but I'm not going to use any cinnamon because it kind of hurts me with sometimes, so I'm going to just leave it out since I can't taste it anyway. And then I've got 3 tablespoons of butter melted over here. And I've got maple syrup. If you don't have any maple syrup, you could use just regular pancake syrup. I'm going to put 2 tablespoons in my melted butter and mix that up a little bit. Now we know this is not going to be too complicated, or little Susie here wouldn't be doing it. And then it calls for 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. But let's just kind of eyeball that just a little. I've told you that I always use the real thing because it makes a difference. Especially if you can taste, which I can't. Okay. That's it. That's it, kids. Now, if you want to add almonds or walnuts or whatever you might want to add, now I'm just going to pour this mixture over my little dry ingredients. And I'm going to give them a little mix up just to kind of moisten everything. And I've got my oven set on 300 degrees. And I've got just a cookie sheet here with some parchment paper on it. And it's what I like to do is just, after I've mixed that up a little bit, I'm just going to pour it out here. And this would be so yummy. And then I'm just going to spread it out here a little bit. See if you can see how I'm spreading this out. If I'm not dropping it all over the counter, I'm going to just do it like this. Just kind of spread it out to give it a little room so those oats will toast up a little bit. Because this is very crunchy after it's done. Now, there it is. Was that very hard? And I'm going to stick that in a 300-degree oven. And I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, I'm going to take my little spatula and just stir it up a little bit. Cook it 10 more minutes. Stir it up again a little bit. And 10 more minutes. Take it out. Let it cool. And after it cools, I usually just store it just in a glass quart jar, and it'll just come up to about right here. It's not a real big recipe, but you could double it if you wanted to. I just make a small amount at a time. But that is really, really good. And anymore, I'll eat usually a bowl of cereal for supper, or at night, sometime about 6. And I mean, you can't eat very much of that because it's so rich, but it's very filling, and I think you'll like it. And really, the end result looks pretty much like it did right then, except it's more toasted and crispy. So I will put the recipe down below in the description. And I'm afraid I'm going to get to be Miss Susie Homemaker, but I think you'll really enjoy that recipe. It's real easy. And I've got a few more easy ones to share with you, because if you're like me, you don't like to get in too deep with all these different ingredients. So I hope you enjoy that. Okay, the granola is about baked, and so I'm going to take it out of the oven and show you what the end result looks like. One thing I forgot to tell you is that if you want to, I better get it out, hang on a second. Let's get it out of the oven here, and it's brown and crispy looking. Of course, it's still a little damp from the yummy. If you want to add like some dried fruit, you would do it now. You don't cook it with the dried fruit in it. So I've got some dried cranberries here I like. I'm not going to put too many. But also like raisins or whatever. Or if you have any kind of seeds like chia seeds or sunflower seeds or anything like that you like, you could add those. But I think I would put those in when you were cooking it. Just these berries when they're dried. And I'm going to just mix that up. Now, what I'm going to do is just leave it here on the counter and let it cool up. And then, I mean, those oats are just as brown and crispy as can be. Let it cool, and then I'm just going to pour it in that jar. And guess what I'm going to eat tonight? Now, I said I like to eat it for supper, which I do. But I will put me some of this just in a bowl and then pour milk over it. And it is really good. You better try it. You won't regret it. Okay, we've just made the granola, and I know if you try that recipe, you're going to really enjoy it. But today is Wednesday, March the 19th, and in my old Kentucky home, the sun is shining just a little bit, but it's supposed to be extremely windy today, so we're going to have to hope we don't blow away. I don't like the wind, but we'll just have to deal with it. Now, what I want to do today is finish the story of my dad and our trips to Tennessee. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go back and listen to my number 9 video. I was telling about my dad, who was an evangelist for many, many years. My mom died when she was 65, and he was 70 at the time. And up until she got sick, she would travel with him every Sunday. They would go to Tennessee to different churches, and he would preach. And then, you know, I'm trying to make it kind of funny because you have to laugh about it because it wasn't very pleasant. But my dad spent no money on Sunday, not a penny. And I told you about our trips to Tennessee early on Sunday morning, and we would get down, usually went to Oneida, Tennessee a lot of times, and he would let us stop at McDonald's and use the bathroom, but we didn't buy anything. We just used their bathroom. So nobody had to spend any money to do that. Then we would go on to the church and have services, and so then after church, where are we going to eat lunch? Now, once in a blue moon, someone might ask us to go home with them to eat, but really I prefer not to do that because, you know, you don't know these people and you're kind of tired and you just want to chill out. But anyway, sometimes people would ask us to eat at their house, not very often. But my dad would pack us a lunch. I didn't have to do a thing. Well, he had one of these old coolers. I don't think they were made out of metal. I don't know what it was made out of, aluminum or something. They were heavy, and it was red and said Coca-Cola on it. And now that I've brought that up, I'm wondering what I did with that when he passed away. I have no idea. Wished I'd have kept it, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I probably wouldn't have used it. All right, he would have that little cooler with, of course, Diet Coke, because that's what I drink and he drinks, and here's my Diet Coke. My mom did. My aunt. See, we were just pop drinkers. Now they did drink coffee some, but I never drank coffee. And my brother, my brother was furious because McDonald's was closed on Christmas Day and he couldn't get a Diet Coke. Because, you know, they are the best Diet Cokes going, is at McDonald's. But we always thought that was kind of funny because McDonald's is only closed one day a year, and he would be mad over that. All right. My dad would have our little drinks in the cooler with ice on them. And then he would have us some sandwich meat, maybe a little sliced ham, or maybe some cheese, maybe some liver cheese. Do you know what liver cheese is? It's really good, but you either have to like it or you hate it. It's, you know, it's untelling what it's made out of. But anyway, we'd have a sandwich of that. He always had mayonnaise in the cooler. And we'd have chips, and we would have a little Debbie cake for dessert. And then, you know, if we got hungry later in the afternoon, we would have a snack or something before we went to church. Hey, but where do you think we ate this food? Well, when we went to Oneida, the good news is they have a little city park there. Oneida's not a very big town. They had a really, really nice little park with trees and picnic tables and covered shelters where people would have like reunions or birthday parties, and a big pond, humongous pond that had ducks, and it was just a beautiful scenery. It had a small track. You could walk around the track. Well, that's where we spent most of our afternoons, sitting in the car at the park. Now, if it was warm, we would get our food out and sit at a table, spread our little food out and eat and sit out, you know, as long as it was comfortable. But hey, I'm talking, we were there in the dead of winter. Now, the roads wouldn't be slick. If the roads were slick, we wouldn't go down there that day, but we've been there many, many cold days. And on those days, we sat in the car from about 12:30 to about 5 or 5:30, where then we would travel on to the next church. Well, I always took a bag of entertainment. You know, I love to read, so I would take me books to read. I might write a letter. I might work some Sudoku puzzles. And I usually took a nap there in the car seat. Just push the seat back, lay it back as far as it would go, and take a nap. Now, in the wintertime, I had me a blanket or two because it got pretty cold. Now, he would let us turn the car on and warm it up every once in a while, but we sat in that car all afternoon, like 5 hours. And if it was warm, sometime I would get out and walk around that little track just to kind of clear my head a little bit. So then we would go to the night service, which was pretty much, the same as the day service. And they would always take up a little love offering for my dad, since, he didn't get paid to do that. And really his income was very limited, just Social Security, and they would give him a little offering. And he would get the biggest kick out of counting that money. Sometimes it was $12.73. And he would say, I'm going to give you some. So he might give me the $3.72 or whatever it was. He was really being nice to me, he was just so unique. You just have to know him to love him. So then when we would leave that church that night, it would be 8 or 9 o'clock. And we would get home, depending on, how long the services lasted, to 10:30 at night. Now, that's a pretty long day. That was 12 hours, usually about 12-hour days. But, I don't regret 1 minute. I am so thankful I got that opportunity because, I never was really close to my dad because he's a hard person to be close to. And I remember growing up, I never remember my dad telling me he loved me. I never remember him hugging me. And I know he did, but he was just his own person. And he was so into himself. He did not consider us, our family at all. He wasn't mean to us. I don't mean that. But he was just so one-track mind. He just did what he wanted to do. And we were just kind of, along for the ride, whatever he wanted to do. But during those 5 years, we talked some, not anything in depth. He never expressed love. And my brother and I both went to college and became teachers. My brother was a principal and retired from that. But he never, ever said one word to compliment us in anything that we did. And I think that really affects you in the long run, that it affects your whole life, because that's how I started out. And it seems like throughout my life I have wanted, people to compliment me or say, hey, that's a great job you did on that, or this or that or the other. But I never got that from him. But when my mom got sick and was on her deathbed with cancer, during that time, he and I were riding a lot together to the hospital. I would take him to the hospital to visit. That I started kissing him just like on the cheek or the forehead. And I would say, I love you. And he'd say, love you too. So after that kind of opened the door for us to say that we loved each other. One more thing I want to tell you about our trip to Tennessee. When we were sitting at that park in the summertime, there were children playing. There was some little playground equipment. There were people having birthday parties or family reunions or whatever. Sometimes there were people being baptized in this, I don't know if you would call it a pond. It was man-made, but it was really big, and then it went into one of the rivers down there. There would be people being baptized, and you would see like a group over here, and they'd be walking into the water and baptizing. And one thing that was so peaceful and really stuck with me was the little ducks that were on that water. There were some bigger white ducks, and then there was some smaller ducks, probably mallards or, colored ducks. But sometimes of the year, you know, we would sit and watch, or I would sit and watch those ducks. And I'll never forget, and I wrote a little story one time about, I don't know where it is. If I find it, I'll read it to you sometime. There was a white duck and a little mallard duck. And they were good friends. And I would always watch for them. Every Sunday, I would watch for them that we were down there. And they would float along that water together, just, you know, talking. I would tell my dad, I said, look, wonder what they're talking about. And they'd get out on the land and they'd eat probably worms or something off of the grass. And they'd lay around maybe on the grass for a little while. Then they'd get back into the water and swim around. And then there were other groups of ducks. And it was just, you know, just the simple things of life. But to watch them and how peaceful they were, how content, which if you looked around that park with people running here and there and everywhere, you know, it wasn't that peaceful. But that really touched me to think of just the simplicity of those little ducks. And it was almost like maybe they lost their mates or, you know, someone like them, and they were just friends and they just did everything together, which it would be hard to make it in life without our friends, wouldn't it? Hey, I've got a group of girlfriends that we went to elementary school together, and we're still really good friends. I don't see them every day, but actually yesterday, 5 of us got together for lunch, and there was 10 of us in elementary school that started out being really good friends. And I'm going to tell you that story another day. But anyway, that was my trips to Tennessee, and that was every Sunday. And I'm thankful I got the opportunity to share those days with my dad. And I hope you have a great day, and I hope you like and subscribe. And hey, it's been like 2 days since I made a video, and I don't know, I can't be making 3 and 4 videos a week, but right now I'll make what I can, and then we'll see, because it's March, April is almost here, May is almost here. My daughter is going to graduate from high school. It's going to be a busy summer getting her ready for college and seeing her off, which I'm so thankful for that. Hey, I'm enjoying talking to some of you all, and leave me a comment if you will, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.